Oh, what a year 2023 has been. The year of showdown. And this is to borrow the words of Kennedy Dupont. This year, the government did not discriminate. The rich cried too. And do you remember the domestic debt exchange program that brought our pensioners, both rich and poor, old and young, together to protest? We also witnessed the 3-day marathon Occupy Jullobi protest. Cecilia Dapaah's stashed cash, $1 million domestic theft, may just stand out as the biggest scandal of the year. She had a whole bang in her bedroom. Not that it is a crime to save money in your bedroom, but now when you have so much money in your house, you are dapper. I mean, dapper. Now, the whole nation cried with chronic kidney disease patients in our dialysis crisis series. The Akosombo Dam spillage shocked the nation, leaving many people broken. Alan Kyerematen resigned from the elephant fraternity and established his yellow butterfly movement, Afafranto, flapping to the annoyance of the elephant. Dr. Bawumia emerged, the first Muslim of northern origin to lead the MPP, despite Kennedy Dupont's promise of a showdown. The governing MPP had eggs in his face when the people of Assin North stuck with James Gyakye Quayson, despite overnight roads and development in the constituency. It was this year that Meek Mill, one of my favorite rappers, desecrated the presidency. Well, who is the newsmaker of the year? Your newsmaker of the year. What about the goof of the year? And oh, I'm looking forward to the soundbite of the year. It will be a 3-hour-long review. And I promise you, time will fly so fast, you wouldn't even notice. We shall overcome. We shall overcome
someday. Gabi Ochiridakun can call me paranoid. I don't care. We're talking about people, we're talking about human beings, we're talking about people who have served this country and have served well and served hard. Not easy service when you're not a member of government and you're calling yourself a member of government. It's a disturbance. That's all I've got to say about it. Listen, sticks and stones may break my bones, but blah blah will not hurt me. No. An insult is the weapon of the pin-brained.
Anybody.
We want to be able to move towards the Jullobi house and be in the forefront as we requested to be. That's what we are waiting to move. So when the police give an indication, so far they have barricaded us and we are stuck in the middle.
I'm talking about taking chua-chua. I'm not talking about Ubering or driving. I'm talking about taking the chua-chua. At times I have to make sure that the money I'm holding is enough so I don't get embarrassed. What is it? No, because it's different if you say like, oh, I just have one source of income, or maybe I'm not even working. Yeah. I've been working for 7 years. Give me a break. I should have something to my name that shows that yes, I've been working in this country.
What did they use to beat you?
Any weapon they have on their hands. Others were using rope.
He still have some bruises behind him, but we can't show that on TV.
They were using
assault marks behind you.
Yes, sir.
What kind of weapons?
Others were using neem tree branches and cables, PVC pipes, and all types of things that they are holding.
The people of Mekwa, especially the people at the lower Volta basin, are waiting them. They should come to our aid. The people, they need tents, they need mattresses, the food stuffs, mosquito coils, mosquito nets, and all that. All those things are being needed now.
I came here because Ghanaians are having difficulties and are suffering. And it is my responsibility to try and help. Because if it's a question of counting who votes for me and who doesn't vote for me, I shouldn't be here because you don't vote for me.
President Akufo, Mama will show down. Vice President, Mama will show down. So, Mama chasing me agent. I'm not going to shut them. What do you
The party has been hijacked by a selected group of party leaders and elders, government appointees, behind the curtain power brokers and some unscrupulous party apparatus. I'm honorably resigning with immediate effect.
More than 2,000 cities. More than 2,000. And they give me a lot of fair too right now. Yeah, they give me a lot of fair too.
We got a lot of money.
Money.
This is the first time.
This, you see, this is the money.
We never experienced this before.
You see, it's my money. Me media.
My brother,
Look at
I've always been happy. Tonight is exceptional because as in our people have vindicated every court and myself, and they still believe in me, so that makes me happy.
What I said yesterday, if you give me the chance today, I will say so again. He is not managing the police service well. And for me, for the 31 years that I've been in the service, I can tell you he's the worst IGP we've ever had.
Should I feel frustrated and resign? I took an oath when I was sworn in. And in my life, when I take on the reins to do something, I do it to the best of my ability. I ought him. Those who do not understand tree, please forgive me. They say I'm a unkwanoma. But they make cry about for it. Me hear the to me.
I just love this news here, indeed. We're going to dissect all that for you. We're going to be, don't worry, we're talking about which of what you've just heard there will qualify as your favorite soundbite of the year, and then the goof of the year. There's a few many, that will make a claim for that particular award. That's later. But let me introduce my guests joining me right now. I have two of them on Zoom, and the first is Shamima Muslim. Hello, Shamima. And Shamima.
Hello.
Hey, great to have you, Shamima. Great to have you. Last year, you were with us when we went through the list of the big stories of the year, and I'm delighted that you can join us again. So great to have you on.
I'm also very honored. I'm very honored to be joining all of you great men of Ghana's media this evening.
Don't worry, I will not disclose what you told me, before we came on WhatsApp. I won't disclose.
No, I'm going to blackmail him with it. If he's not nice to me this evening, I will ask him a question he cannot answer on air.
I know. Feel free. In fact, this show, we are all guests on the show. I don't want to be qualified as a host just yet because I also want to have my own say. So feel free to ask the questions if you may. Samson Lada Yenini, this time he is moving from where I currently sit to the other side, where he's going to take my questions. But again, the caveat is we are all going to be asking ourselves questions at some point. We all become guests and analysts. And so, he gets to enjoy just 15 minutes of it, of what he does on Newsfile. He's lawyer, Samson, great to have you joining us.
Good to be able to join you, Evans.
And every week you do the week in review, which is really what Newsfile is. So you are now going to do the year in review. You put all your weeks that you've done in 1 year and help us analyze. That's exactly what this is exactly your show, just that it's a longer period. So something will come to you first, indeed, and get your thoughts on a few things. And then in the studio with me are my partners in crime. You see us on State of Play, two heads. The two heads, plus myself, not part of the heads, but they are colleagues on the political desk.
For a moment, I wanted to do Katie Hammond.
Which is
what Katie Hammond did to Anodompre.
What did you do to Anodompre?
The attempt to.
I know. Yeah, it's good that you held yourself back. But yes, Raymond Akwa with the political desk also with me in the studio, and Winston Amwang also with me in the studio. Gentlemen and ladies, let's start with this. First, Samson, give me your top 3 biggest news stories of 2023?
So my biggest news stories, I'll list them by way of my disappointments and how we have not resolved those issues. The state-sponsored criminality in brutalizing an entire, enclave, so to speak, an entire community in Ashaiman, in the full glare of the world, where 184 people were arrested, detained without any process whatsoever, regardless of the clear requirements of our laws. And they were released without any apology. And so far, no compensation whatsoever and no investigation whatsoever into the matter for those who must be shamed to be shamed and those who must be prosecuted to be prosecuted. For me, that is a big issue. In the end, it is the police that gave us a list of about 6 people who we have a number of them still on trial. When it comes to the politics, the fact that we have seen only 2 candidates or aspirants for the office of president from one political party spread money in such a way that you have never witnessed. And the evidence exists to show that so much money was thrown at the people to elect among themselves people who would be qualified to represent them, the NPP, going into the 2024 elections for the presidency, especially happening at a time when the dialysis unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital needed only 4 million Ghana cedis. I've heard people say dollars. It's not dollars, was it? 4 million Ghana cedis only to save lives. Over a dozen lives were lost in a matter of 2 weeks. And we had candidates or aspirants coming together to spend in excess of, is it 200 million? So those were bigger issues for me. So if you like, that would be about 3 issues I put together. And you asked for 3 biggest issues. Yes, the sad commentary about the dialysis center and the pittance that it needed if you look at the national kitty and what we throw away, even though the law prohibits it, and the vote buying has been very nauseating. And I can't think about what will happen going into the election itself.
Biggest stories for Samson Lela Yenini. We're going to put it down. We're going to come back and begin to dissect them under categories. Shamima, let me take yours. Top 3.
Right. Okay, so I'm not mute. Yes, good evening once again to everybody. Season's greetings to all of us. I'm sure we are a bit relaxed after the holidays and we are all geared up for a new year. So for me, I think that towards the beginning of the year, the economy still was top priority for everybody. And so the entire debt management, situation also, as evidenced by the domestic debt exchange specifically, because that is what had direct bearing to many average citizens. And for me, the picture that still haunts me almost every day that this subject matter comes up is the pictures of those pensioners picketing in front of the finance ministry. Is an image I'm not sure my subconscious it's going to forget anytime soon, because I asked myself, how did we get to this point? I mean, years ago, I was sitting in a geography class of Professor Songsori, And he said that the measure of a progressive society is what that society is doing for and to its aged, what that society is doing for and its women, what that society is doing for and its young people, and also what is happening to inequalities. I have still not forgotten this statement how many decades on. And it is so true that if you look at the state of all of these categories of citizens that I have mentioned, you know that truly the measure of a dignified country, living in a dignified state that recognizes the dignity of all its citizens will require specific questions to be answered about how it's taking care of its aged. And for us to allow our old people who have worked and broken their backs, who have, put their confidence, into the financial sector, who have moved away from a history of keeping monies under beds, a long process of social conscientization and sensitization to trust the financial system. And they did this with all of their life savings and were only dependent on the yields from some of these bonds or investment they had made. And for us to allow these aged to picket and beg for money that was rightfully theirs, money that they rightfully earned, pension contributions that they made, even though their salaries were not enough to meet all of their needs at the time.
Don't drink the soup just yet, because we'll come to that subject substantively.
The details.
Yes, very shortly.
So that's
number one. Yes.
Major issue. My second issue again lies in the stories about the drowning incidents of young people who have to ferry themselves across waters to either seek an education or to eke a certain, livelihood from the other side. I'm talking specifically about the stories we heard about drowning incidents in parts of the Volta, as well as even the Wager area, and how we as a country continue to fail our young people. And the fact that there are many girls in so many other communities today who cannot cross the rivers when they are in their periods because the river gods abhor menstrual blood, and it's still happening today. So they lose out on a lot of contact hours, and it affects ultimately their educational outcomes. That's my second issue. My third issue is the general decay of our democratic governance system, specifically the issues of corruption, as we would mention, the issues of transparency, the issues of general good governance, and how we are increasingly losing faith in this democratic dispensation.
But talking about that, is there any particular story in 2023 that best illustrates that for you?
It's a number of things, a number of stories. One would be the increasing monetization of our politics.
So vote buying, just like something? Okay.
Yes, like something as witnessed by all the internal political contests. And also even the district level elections. Okay. And so that's my third issue. No, is that my fourth issue?
So yeah, that's your third issue. You're on your third issue. Your third issue
is linked with my second issue, the district level elections. And I think that we haven't quite shown concern for the way in which the Electoral Commission conducted the district level election, because we know that may be a precursor to what we might experience into the next year. We have focused so much on election 2024 that we haven't been quite vigilant on the things and the infractions and the, poor management of the district level elections. And whilst I'm at it, I am so concerned about the future of representative democracy, because increasingly over the years, we are having lesser women participation in these areas, district level elections, and by extension, national elections.
Okay.
Those would be my three main concerned areas.
DDEP, the drowning incidents of young people, and then the democratic decay. Generally, their specific stories are vote buying, something that Samson touched on also, and the district level elections. Linked to that, the underrepresentation of women in that part of, as far as the democratic process is concerned. Okay, so those are your three. Let me come to the studio. Raymond, top three?
Let me just list them, right?
Yeah, just list them.
So, Kyerematen going independent.
Okay, resignation of Alan Kyerematen.
Yes,
okay.
yes. The second one is also the Cecily Adapa situation.
Okay.
Then the third one is the Akosombo Dam spillage and the effect that it has on the communities that are connected.
Okay. Okay, so you have first been Alan Kyerematen's resignation, Cecily Adapa, which is a big one. We'll talk about that extensively. And then Akosombo Dam spillage. Okay, Winston?
Yeah, so let me do it this way. Of course, the first one is the domestic debt exchange program.
Okay.
How it impacted a lot of people. I mean, Shaloma has talked about the pensioners picketing, but, beyond the pensioners, some individual bondholders also lost, a lot of funds. We have even institutions.
Why are you looking at me?
You know it better. I think it was just yesterday when we were having the year-end review on the Super Morning Show that somebody actually reached out to me and said that, look, they were corporate bondholders, okay, and they decided, because it was voluntary, they decided not to get onto it, and they've still not been paid their monies. Yeah, and so that's a major issue. I talk about the dam spillage. Look, over 30,000 people being displaced, and it's an area I know very well, and the problems they had to go through. And some of you ask yourself the very simple question, whether we could have prevented this. And it was a question we kept asking over and over again. Yes. We'll get back to it. I want to do something which is typical me. So my third issue, it's politics, okay? But I'll box two issues in one.
Okay, no problem. No problem. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So first is the resignation of Alan Kyerematen to contest the 2024 election as an independent candidate. And second is the election of Dr. Bawumia as flag bearer of the NP.
Okay, great. So we've seen the three for all of you. I would also go for DDEP. I think it's historic in its negative impact on the economy and the lives of the people. And for me, there's a phrase that encapsulated the importance or the negative essence of the DDEP, which it's attributed to Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, that it will wipe out the middle class. And for me, that sort of encapsulated it for me. I mean, talk about the pensioners, everybody knows what it meant for them, but the middle class people, everybody who has money to save something, anticipation of retirement. So the retired were affected. Young people also saving towards that were also affected. And that's what he made a point about the potential it had to wipe out the middle class is very true. And I know many people who can't count themselves a middle class anymore because of the DEP. Your money is just... So that's definitely one. First for me. Second is Cecily Adapa. I think that's a big one. It sort of shook the foundations. Something that we've known, right? I mean, Obeda Sama had written about it and told us it's common in politics that politicians keep their monies in their boots and their cars, etc. But of course, nobody had proven it yet until Cecily Adapa showed us that each time they looked into her room, they found more money. We'll come to the specifics, and I know Samson knows more about this than all of us, and so I'm looking forward to hearing his thoughts on that. That's my second, and of course politics. I agree with you; those two would be my top. The third one also, the James Etukwesi one was a big one too, right? I mean, because of everything that was happened to him, and he still went ahead and won the elections. And it's also what it says about what possibly may happen next year. That's why I put it there. And then you look at Dr. Bawumia's election also, two together. So those are my three. Now let's get to the specifics. Now we've categorized all this into categories and blocks. Let's start with the domestic debt exchange and the economy, right? Let's start with that. And because the two of you all mentioned that, let me start here. We gotta go to the Zoom. What about the domestic debt exchange makes it a top one for you? Raymond.
So I have said this before, that we have been to the IMF 17, 18 times, depending on who is counting. Big deal. It's predominantly, in fact, apart from PAMSCAD, apart from we having to do some social mitigation within that period, most of our IMF programs come and go, and people just talk about it as we being irresponsible, going for some help and doing the usual things. But one of the few times where, and there are so many Ghanaians who do not care about the politics of the day, even when government announces that we are going for an IMF program, say, yeah, we are back at it again. I mean, Professor Enesaite says is a ritual we do virtually every 3-5 years. And that for his almost 4 decades of doing economic analysis, he can predict that this was likely to happen within the space 4 or 5 years down the line. We have not changed. But this was an extraordinary one because of what brought it into being and the introduction of that domestic debt exchange or debt exchange in any form, understandably in any mode. Because the executive president, in announcing some of these things, told everybody that as for a haircut,
no haircut.
It was an impossibility. It would not happen. Some disputed that. I mean, of course, subsequently, the finance minister also stressed it to the point that, of course, after the finance minister, many did not take his word so seriously because he had told us we will not get to the IMF if we got there in the first place. Now, it is when it started becoming impacting people, and you know there are people that talk to you maybe once in a while. They are not really, they don't care about what happens in the country. They are just removed predominantly. They could be former doctors, retired, sitting at home, sometimes goes to certain places to supervise work and all of that. But when you have a huge number of these grouping, not only forming groups, but calling you virtually consistently, telling you how this is going to kill a certain industry. And let's not get it wrong. In the last 3 decades, many believe that with Ken Ofori-Atta as finance minister, we are the man who understood the capital markets of this country. So financial markets were supposed to blossom under him. Did you get the point?
Yeah.
So when it is during this time that we are introducing a domestic debt exchange, and I was actually overwhelmed.
That's the big irony.
By the numbers, the people that would never, people that mostly, and I reference them, when they meet you, they will say, you see, you are a young man, so you should tone down small. Let the people understand that things are happening. But I know we've been through worse times, so you should tone down small. When those people call you and say, this is going to kill a lot of us, and that is going to really deal a big blow. There's an old man who told me something that we spent almost 3 decades to build the current system that we have in place as a financial market structure. The biggest threat to that financial market structure is this domestic debt exchange. We got people to believe it is possible to put money in our system.
And in fact, we're told many times in schools and
yes. I was going to come to that.
Yeah, go on.
That the usual textbooks that they are parried and said to us reduced to a very large extent the risk involved in some of these
government security.
Yes, in fact, of course, there's some risk in it, but
they say zero risk.
Yes,
I mean, of course, although
when they are coming to sell that to you, they tell you boldly, including those people who made a career out of inviting people to not only save but invest for their future. You get my point? Yeah. There was an industry, and you know them. I mean, some of them are even in government places now. They were motivational speakers. They rose to prominence because of riding on a certain investment culture. The biggest threat to that investment culture was this domestic debt exchange. And of course, around that time, I had taken up a course in financial markets. So the understanding and appreciation of it became even more pronounced to me. If you understood how people were basically converting their cedis into dollars and finding accounts to transfer to in short. People that you expect to be so intelligent that they understood and appreciated the system. How they were basically converting and looking for dollars in every corner, trying to make sure that they secure the amount of money they have worked for all their lives. And I'm not talking here about, just public servants. People who have run banks. People who have been in charge of big-time investment units. Being so scared and afraid that all that I've worked for in my life, I know people, including doctors, who have retired for so many years, who are then forced to go back and say, can you give me a job to do?
You know,
because this threat is to my very existence as a human being.
And when they formed the platform for the individuals affected by this, the pensioner bondholders, the individual bondholders forum, right? And of course, I found myself on that platform. the people in society, not only middle class, the elite of the society, owners of institutions, wealthy, who were on that platform, very agitated. Everybody was affected, including the market woman who had also put in money in mutual,
This is the problem.
And you escaped by the skin of your teeth.
Yes, because, every time you're looking... So let me be very frank with you.
Did you enter
Wait 7 minutes.
No, so this is what happened. Every week, I had... I don't want to mention, but I can mention because it's Kendo Freitas, Data Bank, so it's not a big deal. But I had some funds at Data Bank. So what I do is that every week, because they had advertised 18.47%. So every week I check it and check, how the funds were doing. So I was checking, and at a point I realized that the interest that I was giving was actually about 9% and not the 18.47% that I was promised.
Half of that.
Half of that. So I became worried because I'd already predicted that if care wasn't taken, the economy could crash in September. This was around June, July. So I decided to go for my money.
This year?
Last year.
Last year,
yeah. So I decided to go for my money. So I went for half and I said, let me go for half of the money and watch how the market would behave.
Yeah, you were lucky. When I sensed it this around the same time, around June, in fact, it was earlier than I think must have been May, there was nobody to buy my bond. It was just that. I mean, I was trying to dump it. I couldn't find anybody to dump it.
And this is what happened. When I went there, I saw 2, 3, 4 persons in the government around. I said, okay, what's happening here? Oh, no, you were coming for money. I said, no problem. After a week, I went for the remainder of my money and left something there. I said, okay, let me just keep this here and see what would happen. Well, the rest, like we say, is history. But for me, this is the thing. We should have seen this coming. And what saddens me is that the very person who led us into this still told us that as a father, you don't run away from your children. When we said that, no, don't worry, we say go. He stayed on and is still at post today. Anybody who's a watcher of Ghana's economy would have told you that by the end of 2019, we had high risk of debt distress.
That's true.
We had opportunity to get into some, systems where debt suspension, we refused.
Basically approaching the IMF at that time.
At that time, we refused. And if we had approached the IMF earlier, we wouldn't have been through this kind of problem. Look, we talked about, you saw the Bank of Ghana, for instance. The Bank of Ghana had to actually impair 48 billion Ghana cedis.
No wonder its record loss of 60 billion.
Because the Bank of Ghana...
And they themselves in the statement attributed it to the...
No, the Bank of Ghana, I can read it to you. The Bank of Ghana had reached the point where the Bank of Ghana was bailing government out. We can have that conversation about monetary financing.
Even to pay
and salaries and say that it's improper and all of that.
And they admit.
But we had reached the point where we had been shut out of the international capital markets. So what we used to do, where we consistently would go at the beginning of the year and use that to shore up the Ghana cedi and turn around and say we're doing very well. Well, that's not bad if you don't have a problem. But once you have a problem, then we'll turn around and tell you, no, you shouldn't have done that. So the Bank of Ghana, that's also because, look, if you run an economy on PR, you'll be exposed at a point. And that's what we had been doing with the economy.
And here's the thing, though, Winston. We are talking about a catastrophic collapse, nearly, of an economy, affecting many lives.
Yeah.
You've talked about the Bank of Ghana.
Yeah.
You've talked about the governor of the Bank of Ghana, of course. You talk about the finance. We are in December now. We're doing year-end review. There hasn't been any consequence for any of these individuals who were in charge and led us to this point. And we saw this huge controversy around whether the Bank of Ghana breached the regulations in just doling out money to the state in trying to cover up what was happening with the domestic debt exchange. Last year, on this same show, the year-end review, Kenneth Friata was beleaguered at the time. His own people were saying, we want him out. We don't want him in his government. They had met the president then, and the president had given them some assurance. On the show, I made a prediction then. That time, everybody thought he wouldn't survive it because it was unprecedented that your own colleagues, party folks in parliament will gang up against you. This was my prediction last year. This is what I predict will happen. I believe Ken leaves if he
wants to leave, or the president wants him to leave?
No, and the president will never want him to go.
Are you saying in all this, at least you have your sources, in all this, there was no point that Ken himself wanted to leave and the president says to stay?
I don't know that.
Okay.
But I'm just making a prediction going into 2023 that Ken only leaves if he wants to. I am confident the president himself will not want to remove Ken, the president himself.
Really?
I think this comes down to what Ken chooses to do. It is not up to the MPP MPs. As for the NDC MPs, they're out of the equation. They've lost their vote. It's done. The MPP MPs, first of all, watch whether they'll be still disunited in 2023 after the IMF deal is struck. It comes down to what Ken wants to do, and we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but that's what I believe will happen. Short word on that.
Yeah, so yes, and you're right, except that next year, at a point Ken would have to leave. But again, I mean, in an Akufo-Addo government, you don't know what to say.
Well, I can predict again. He will leave when he
But
chooses.
now, the party's on the neck of the president, that he must let Ken leave. So what is going to
what the General Secretary said?
Yeah, but what is going to happen is that the reshuffling may, and let me choose my words carefully, because even though sources tell us he'll be giving another ministry, a very nice one, you would get to know shortly.
I think Ken will be given another ministry.
Another ministry. He leaves the finance ministry. He's not leaving as a minister, but that could also change. Anything can happen. So I'm not going to stick my neck out and say, oh, Ken is going to leave the finance ministry.
And quickly, I want to bring something and
but let me just wrap up on the debt exchange.
Yeah.
So look, this was a program, and consistently, every night I was going home, there's a particular woman who would call me and tell me about the problems she has to go through, how she had to work so hard outside this country and retire into Ghana. And she planned, these bonds in a way that she would use it to buy drugs. And she didn't know what she was going to do. There were people who consistently would call you and tell you, I don't know how I'm going to survive. In fact, when Larry Jagger, when we spoke to him on the Super Morning Show, and he made that point, I've still never forgotten that, when he made that point, that for 15 years, he's 66 years, and in his family, the males hardly cross 80 years. So he's worked all his life, served the country. In his retirement, this is what the state does to him. I say, in any serious country, because we saw this coming, because by the time we went for the first Eurobond in 2021 and tried again in September 2021 for the second time, and the market started raising doubts about the country because you had consistently gone once a year. Once they started raising doubt about us, that is when we should have run to the IMF. But of course, they say pride comes before fall. And our pride at the time, which people say wrong in all its purposes, led us to where we are today.
I mean, and Samson, surprised that we are doing year in review. We've all talked about the devastating consequences of this for people's lives. And there has been no consequence for the people at least who are in the charge, who led us here.
Evans, it's unfortunate to say this, but I don't know how else to say it. How much this particular president has been such a big disappointment to many, very many people. And I believe you and I interact with people that loved him, people that believed in him, people that could shed blood for him. I'm not talking about party fanatics. I'm not talking about people who are getting the crumbs and are whipped as in foot soldiers to make all sorts of comments in favor of the president or their party just because they need, to be giving, some small money to survive. I'm talking about people who mean well and meant well for him and wanted him to be president at all costs. The people who have been in his party, some who are not in his party, and believed and trusted him that he was going to bring such a significant shift or reset in the manner in which we do our politics. Now, he began with a bank cleaning program. And if you begin with a bank cleaning program, which we were told could be resolved by the state spending some 8 billion or 9 billion US dollars and not spending as much as $25 billion. And he went ahead with it.
That's CDs. CDs.
Yes, CDs.
Yes.
Went ahead with it without, listening to the options. And this is part of why we had to go to the IMF and we had to subscribe, where the DDP had to, happen. Now, the new leaders of the central bank were very clear in our various interviews with them about officers of the bank being complicit in this kind of rape of the state, where banks that did not deserve the bailout were giving liquidity support. And what happened to those officers? Do you know of any report or do you know of any news of a single member of the Bank of Ghana that superintended the crime that led to the country having to spend as a whopping 25 billion or even more? I think Winston and Raymond may have better figures to tell us. And yet, not a single person in that institution is being held accountable. How do you expect that anybody else will be held accountable for anything?
Yeah. I mean, and that is the tragedy indeed. And Shamima,
Yes.
and that is the tragedy, is it not? And no wonder, almost after every 4 or 5 years, we're back at the IMF, because people in charge of running, and we're talking about consequence. In the midst of all this, the Bank of Ghana, having recorded the 60 billion loss, and everybody knew this was going to come, still goes ahead to spend $250 million on a new head office, right? Which is another issue that we'll talk about. So that is the problem we are in. We are a few days to the end of the year. The consequences still being felt by many people. We're still struggling for the second tranche of the IMF money, by the way.
Yeah.
And its impact will stretch into 2020, 2024. And yet, the people who led us here are still there.
So when I was reflecting on, what I wanted to perhaps talk about when I say that there's democratic decay and also the kind of governance we are experiencing now, dovetails into your concern. You see, I think that what we all have to wake up to the reality that what ought to be isn't always what is. And that when we say that every day we tell that, we are a democratic country and Ghana, has done well. Yes, we seemingly have somehow miraculously been immune from our own mismanagement. If you compared our country to other countries, I don't know if we are lucky. I don't know if it's just the citizens who are not yet ready to claim their rights, but the whole phrase of democracy is for the people, by the people, and of the people. In the face of the persistent intransigence of those who hold power, betrays that statement that truly, in this democracy, power is definitely not for the people. It's not by the people. It may be procured from the people every now and then during election cycles, but it ultimately isn't. Because if it is truly for the people, it means that when the people talk and they talk consistently, we should see certain action. It should not be knee-jerk reaction to every now and then there are some protests and then they throw us, a bait and then they calm us down and it goes back to business as usual. Because when we speak about the issue of good governance, and specifically here, since we are talking money matters, financial governance, it has its tenets, and we should be seen to be operating by the tenets of democracy and accountability and transparency. Like you're saying, last year I said, look, we seem to be, especially the finance minister seemed to be very high on faith and low on works. I recall I made that statement even then, as at last year, and see where we are today. The effects of the financial mismanagement cannot be excused by any external shocks alone. We must definitely look at the political decisions that bring us some of these problems, okay? Because it is trite that you cannot constantly spend what you don't have on things that may not necessarily be necessities and expect that you get onto any even keel. And if you look at the way this government has spent the freebies that they gave, and you know, so right now I'm really telling everybody that beware of Greeks who come bearing gifts, because your entire life savings will be taken back. You know, it's almost like selling your soul to the devil. You would, that Satan gives nothing for free. Pardon my words. I'm not saying that the government is saying, but I'm just using it to illustrate the point that when citizens become so removed from the situations and they don't open their eyes to the trends. You know, I just watched this movie, Leave the World Behind. When we are so consumed by the distractions that we truly are not in tune with the effects of the decisions that are being made, sometimes cloaked, you know, with the cloak of it being of benefit to us, or when we're receiving the free or discounted electricity bill, discounted water bill, I think many people were happy. But I was quite concerned even then, because I was wondering, these freebies would definitely come at a cost. And they did come at a cost, because you cannot spend in luxury when you're living in poverty. You can't. And the actions and decisions and behaviors of those in politics has led to an increasing mistrust of our leaders. And yet the citizens seem not to be able to find the verve or the energy to protest consistently for a change in behavior.
And by the way, since you're doing a year in review, I need to ask though, because if you really look at it carefully, at the beginning of this year, the domestic debt exchange still, I mean, as Shamima had said, the pain was obvious. The fear was that haircuts were going to happen, right? But it was, I want to introduce the word that was actually part of the phraseology. Voluntary was part of the phraseology. It's a voluntary debt exchange. People had a will to choose or not to choose. I chose not to. Others did choose. Now, again, this is a fair question to ask, both of you, all of you indeed, that if you look back now, where we are now till January 1, those who did not, those who chose not to participate, they've been paid their coupons, right? Those who chose, decided to take the haircut, they also been paid their haircut. So what's the issue?
Well, the issue is
Raymond. No, wait. I want Raymond first. No, I want you first. What's the issue?
In all fairness, we know that what they are supposed to be paid, and we know what we have gone through as a country, with their timelines and differing timelines, and actually paying and not paying sometimes. And let's be clear, there were some times that we had to see these old people go back to the finance ministry. And
they were asking for exemption.
No, later on, even renegotiating timelines on whether or not to be paid. You remember?
Yeah.
On 4 different occasions within the year, and not long ago, they even went back again. That system, and we should agree, our financial system was bastardized to the lowest level. What we came close to doing was almost collapsing that structure, because the structure had operated purely on trust for a functioning system all over the world. What we did was take out that trust, destroy that trust to the level that people had no choice. So this voluntary and non-voluntary kind of conversation, in all fairness.
But it was voluntary.
Oh, but we know that it wasn't really voluntary. We know we
But there are people who did not participate.
But did all the groups have the option? For example, pension funds. The conversation also about the other funds that were automatically involved, were they all voluntary? So let's not, and I think that's where we should get this straight. There's a system that we have put in place for almost 3 decades, seeking to build and prosper. Without a proper financial system, countries collapse. And the difference between we and the US today is because their financial system can guarantee that you will get the amount of money to do what you're supposed to.
We have this 5 minutes.
But we destroy that financial system.
Evans, today, what is the value of risk placed on the old bonds? 100%. If you are an institution, so I mean, regulated by the Bank of Ghana or by SEC, and you maintain old bonds, you have a risk of 100% on it. Would you keep that bond? Raymond, will you keep that bond?
Would you advise? You don't even say me. Let's say I'm an advisor to an institution or a group of people. Would you keep that bond?
Would you keep that bond with a risk of 100%?
I mean,
so
and the risk here means
regulatory question.
If all that you do in financial systems is to manage risk.
Yes.
The risk of having to lose a certain section, so you go into all the other factors. But this is a case where your risk is 100%.
So this is the point. Your risk is 100%. Automatically, you're thinking and you're saying, I can't be doing this. So we talk about the regulatory coercion, which was used to get it out of,
the banks to participate on all that.
Actually undergo the domestic debt exchange. Now, people have had their payments deferred. People have had to go back and forth. Now, look at it from this way. First of all, if I expected money in September and I wasn't paid that money in September and I was paid that money in November, that money would have lost value. In a country where
there's depreciation also
very high, where there's depreciation. So time value of money would actually affect it. And there would have been a decline in the value of that particular of those funds. Now, even if I consistently would have to go and sit and look at, you can see them on your screens. If I have to go and sit there, the time that I go there, I drive in and out, the impact. And for those who actually signed on to it, look, they were promised percentages of 18, some 17, whatever, 20. Now you go for a 9%. Automatically, you've lost half of your interest.
Yeah,
okay.
If you factor in inflation, if you factor in all that, your money is gone.
If you factor in inflation and all of that, people have lost lots of funds. And this is the point today, Evans. Let me just end on this.
Briefly.
Today, if I ask you to go and buy Government of Ghana bonds, you think twice.
No, let's say categorically, the bond market is dead.
Good.
There's no bond market. except for those who, took the New Deal. That bond is
today,
the bond market.
Today, look, let me be very honest with you. I keep money in the bank. I get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
The money is losing value.
Even safety reasons.
By the way, it's also because of domestic debt exchange that we had a whole former Chief Justice come out to protest. And when she did, there are people in the government who said a few things that she was very unhappy about, and she did not hold back. Pretty rare, pretty historic. Listen to her.
Gabi can call me paranoid. I don't care. We're talking about people, we're talking about human beings, we're talking about people who have served this country and have served well and served hard. Not easy service when you're not a member of government and you're calling yourself a member of government. That's why I'm still sitting here. Okay. He can decide on, he doesn't decide for me what I need to do and what I do not need to do. It's as simple as that. I don't have time for things like that. People like that are not important to me or to my life. He's a disturbance. That's all I've got to say about it. Listen, sticks and stones may break my bones, but blah blah will not hurt me. No, and insult is the weapon of the pin-brained. That's all I've got to say. I'm not going to trade words with pin-brains. I'm sorry.
And trust me, I had not heard this phrase until I heard it altered, and I had to go and check what
I didn't know it too.
pin-brain. But quickly, 30 seconds each. Domestic debt exchange still a factor. Looking into 2024, what do you see as its impact on next year? Very briefly.
The inertia to get back to a functioning financial system is where we are today. We know that the system is broken. We are trying to fix it. I do not think that the current state and the pace at which you are going is good enough. But there is a small silver lining. I say, and many people agree, that banks are back to doing banking. You see out there, banks now offering loans to businesses and even ordinary
They're now advertising for people to come for loans.
Come in. Something that happened a couple
because the government security option is...
Because when you are just buying government securities and pricing and basically leaving we, the people who would need the loans, to also actually enhance our businesses, enhance our private...
So the government is no longer crowding us out.
Brilliant.
Okay.
And you said, well, the government still, but except that still, I'll explain that in just 15 seconds, but except that the policy rate makes even the lending rate still high for a lot of the banks. And so when they undergo promotions, they're giving a lending rate of 26.5%. That's just too much for any business to want to go for money. But this is the other thing. The Bank of Ghana issued that said, a lot of the banks these days are going for short-term investments. What are the short-term investments? Government of Ghana Treasury bills.
Yeah.
The banks, a lot of them are still investing in Government of Ghana Treasury bills. And that's why they're declaring huge profits.
Well,
you've heard of the profits.
Yeah. Well,
some still not doing them.
I need to move to the next big issue for 2023. And I want to bring some...